How to control thoughts. The first step to controlling your thoughts is to be aware of them. If we look at thoughts as if they are children, when we take our eyes off children, what do? They act up. They start misbehaving. But that simple acknowledgement, letting them know that they're being watched and you're there and you are present, they start behaving. That's what you can do with your thoughts as well. Your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts are an entirely different entity. So, for example, you just made the awareness that my thoughts are becoming an issue. I'm spending too much up here thinking and not enough. I'm not paying attention to the task at hand. I'm not being, you're too focused on everything that's going on in your head. Your one thought started creating several other thoughts that are now communicating together. And that's the simple awareness of realizing, oh my gosh, my thoughts are, it's like a classroom of kids acting up. The first thing to do is just say, okay, let me just dissect one of these thoughts. So I'm going to take a thought and say, okay, how is this thought harming me? So that's one question. Is this thought harming me? Then the next question is this thought creating an emotion that is a negative emotion? So you're taking that thought, you're dissecting it. You are spending time, you're acknowledging that thought, but you're no longer allowing it to engage and create all this chaos in you're saying, okay, I'm taking this thought in and I'm looking at it. Because that's how we determine the good thoughts from the bad thoughts. And this is what you have to do in order to change the way your mind is thinking. You have to be in control over your thoughts. Your mind is not, you're in charge. You are in charge of your mind. So what you do is you take that thought, you say, is it harming me? Is it creating a negative emotion? Because our thoughts lead to emotions, and our emotions are what drives our behaviors. So is this thought harming me? Is it creating a negative emotion? So you got two questions you're asking the thought. This is you being aware of that thought. And how can I change this thought into a productive thought? And that's usually what that means is that you are going to ultimately just tell yourself that you're not spending any more energy focusing on that thought. It's removing that thought. And I'm not saying that this process is going to change overnight. For my own personal experience, I had to realize that my thoughts were my problem. When I first woke up, my first realization was my thoughts are causing my problems in my life. That was the first thing that went off in my head, that my thoughts were causing the problems in my life. And I realized I have to change my thoughts, and I have to control my thoughts. You have more control when you realize that, just like children, they want attention, but They don't want negative attention, or, well, we don't want to give them negative attention, but they will act up and they will create negative behaviors if we do not nip them in the butt before it gets out of hand. That simple awareness of those thoughts that are now consuming your mind, that aren't productive thoughts, and that's that simple discernment, that simple deciphering through those thoughts consistently will allow you to, you're becoming more aware of the present moment. When you are, okay, I'm going to pay attention to that thought, instead of it 10 minutes going by and the thoughts just running through your head and not getting anything done. It's creating emotions, stressing you out, making you angry, all of those different things that are not conducive to what you're doing at that moment. You say, okay, now I'm going to be present. Okay, let me look at this thought. Is it benefiting me or is it harming me? And when you do that, you're zooming into what's going on right now. Okay, I'm paying attention to you, but you're only going to give it positive attention. How can you fix that problem? See, we spend too much time just ignoring our thoughts, and by the time we get so far along, our thoughts have consumed us, and then we have all of these emotions that now, how hard is it going to be to get out of that mood? Or what kind of behaviors occurred because of all of that time that passed, that you allowed the emotions to build up from all of those thoughts. So, let's say you have 30 thoughts. You just take one of those. It's like, and the rest of the thoughts will follow suit. It's just like a classroom of misbehaving kids, and they're all getting all chaotic because you're not spending any time focusing on them. You take your eyes off of them and then they act up. You take one aside and you fix that behavior, and then the rest of the class will follow suit. Typically, after consistency, you have to train people to behave. You have to train your thoughts to behave. Your thoughts are not, they're not people, but anything that can move. Anything that can move. I learned this in school, this little point right here. Anything that can move, that is not dead, behaves. Okay, so they have behaviors. So thoughts can have behaviors, and they do. You can acknowledge that. So with consistency, grabbing hold of one of your thoughts that you with practice, you're going to be more aware of your thoughts day in and day out. That is the first step in being able to get to the point where you're going to be able to meditate, because we can't stop all of our thoughts. We can't stop them, all of them. They're going to constantly come in. But from time to time, we're going to have to say, okay, but you are in charge. You are in charge. So that awareness of, I have the ability to control my thoughts by simply acknowledging them and realizing, what's a good thought and what's a bad thought. Because that determines whether or not those thoughts are going to be productive to your wellness. So I hope that helps you a little bit when it comes to trying to get into a meditative state, because this whole awareness of how to go about doing it becomes a little tricky, and we can get a little overwhelmed. But that simple awareness of, it is okay to dissect things, but when you have all sorts of thoughts, it becomes overwhelming. And that's why I said just pick one thought and focus on it. And with consistency, those thoughts are going to get less and less and less, because you're training your mind to think good thoughts. So you're taking one thought and you're deciding whether or not it's good for you or it's bad for you. And you're telling your thought, I'm not going to spend any more time on or energy on thoughts that aren't good for my well-being. So I hope that makes sense, and I will see you in the next video.